Ahoy there, fellow travelers. Welcome to E-Travels with E-Trules, a personal and literary podcast of travel adventures and misadventures from around the world. This is Eric Trules, and thanks for listening. Welcome to another Behind the Scenes with E-Travels with E-Trules. I'm Eric Trules, and today I'll be talking with Jonathan Munoz-Proulx, the young man who suggested to me that I start a podcast of my own travel stories. But before I begin with Jonathan, I'd like again to acknowledge my new subscribers on iTunes, who are leaving the podcast some incredible reviews. Having just released episode 1 yesterday, Grazing with Camels, about my 1999 camel safari out into Egypt's Sinai Desert, I especially appreciate this comment from my friend in Jerusalem, Raphael Morav, who is a career diplomat in the Israeli Economic Office. I first met Rafi and his family in Rome in 1998, and then I visited him in Jerusalem in 1999, Helsinki in 2001, and Paris in 2014, as he was posted to a new city every few years. I've seen his boys grow up from teenagers to independent young men, and I can't wait to bring my new son to Israel for our next visit. Rafi says, I subscribed and listened to the podcast on your Sinai journey. Very nice and nostalgic. As for your peace plan, I buy it. Good luck and inspiration for the next ones. Thanks, Rafi. Glad you like my peace plan. And thanks to other new subscribers. I really appreciate your listening, leaving a comment, and helping me spread the word. Okay, so let me tell you a bit about Jonathan Munoz-Proulx. I first met him at USC as a student in my freshman seminar called Self-Expression and the Arts. He then took about 5 more classes with me before he graduated, including my solo performance class twice, and my seminar with the godfather of Los Angeles theater, Gordon Davidson, also twice, even after he graduated. Jonathan is an associate producer at Skylight Theater and vice chairman of the Alliance of Los Angeles Playwrights. He has served on the California Arts Council and LA County Arts Commission grant review panels. He currently serves on the Latino Theater Commons National Steering Committee. Jonathan identifies as a queer Latino millennial in search of his ancestral roots in Mexico. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Trules.
That's a mouthful. I like that. I like that last part. In search of his ancestral roots in Mexico. We'll have to talk about your electronic travels in a moment.
Oh, I'd be happy to.
But I've known you since you were a mere lad, as a freshman, enrolling in your first semester at USC and taking that freshman seminar. You were outstandingly ambitious and always enthusiastic, and I've seen you grow up probably 10 years or so, a good almost third or half of your life.
Yeah, that's right.
How have you grown and changed since first meeting me, and what was it like to go through USC, and particularly maybe the nature of my classes?
Well, I mean, I hope that the folks who listen to this podcast are familiar with you and your classes, or some of them maybe, because your classes are so empowering and liberating and encourage people to be vulnerable and express themselves and maybe be a little bit wacky. And that vulnerability has really led me to choices and projects that I think resonate deeply with people and excite me.
It makes me think of mentorship. I'm a pretty old dude now, and I never really felt like I had a mentor in my life. I'm such an independent slightly stubborn, eccentric, idiosyncratic guy that I've sort of gone my own way. But I read and I believe that mentorship can make a tremendous difference in people's lives. And I've felt like a mentor to many of my students. I'm still in touch with so many of them. I have this Facebook group called Trules as Children with about 600 of my former students who I still feel very close to. And you're certainly one of them. And I wonder if what you think about mentorship. And I believe it's somewhat clear to see that you have had mentors in your life.
Yeah, I have. I've been very fortunate to have mentors. I've been also quite aggressive as a student in cultivating mentors. And I'm so grateful for you, Trules, for being a mentor still, for 10 years. But I'm also curious if your relationship to mentorship has changed, because I remember there was one year where you went traveling and you came back and you were talking about this experience you had with the students you had, and you wanted to be more accessible and have these sort of office hour coffee dates with students. And there was an openness to cultivating mentees that I don't think was always there when I met you.
I think that's really true. I had just come back from Romania on a Fulbright grant. I was in Bucharest, and I was having lunch with my students every day, and I never did that in Los Angeles. And I always felt like I needed to keep some kind of boundary or border between myself and my students, because I'm a tough, demanding teacher, and it's almost like a therapist or a doctor. You keep your professional role. Yet when I came back from this trip, I think I sent out that email. I wanted to have a coffee with Trules, and I tried. Not that many students showed up, and after a while, it sort of dribbled out. I didn't take it personally, because I found that I was capable of lunch and coffee and mentorship and friendliness with my students. So I took it something about the university's culture, or that students had an agenda, and it was, I couldn't articulate it, but I know that I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to recreate that.
I wonder if it may be because students already have such access to you. You're so accessible. And they're also, when you're a student, I don't know that I was even looking for mentorship, really. I feel like it's when students graduate and are alumni and really wrestling with, how do I be an artist in a world where I don't have resources yet, like I did at USC? Then I need mentorship. So I almost feel like the community who would want to show up for lunch or coffee and prioritize that are the graduates, are the alumni, like you and I have built.
Yes. We have coffee in our neighborhood in Echo Park at Fix, and every few months. And I brought you into the elementary school right across the street where my son now goes to school.
Yes, we walked across the street. You showed me your son. Trules and I wandered the halls of an elementary school with Trules asking parents and teachers and popping his head in the classroom saying, "Have you seen Excel?" his son. And I thought, oh my gosh, my mom works at a school. I worked at a school. This is so not allowed. We need to check in and have a visitor badge. We're going to get in trouble. And we walked on the playground and you asked an aide, "Where's Excel?" And I feel like, gosh, this is not allowed. They're going to kick us out of this elementary school. And we found Excel, and then you invited yourself to a parent, hot dog and horchata party where you were the only white person there. And it was, I thought, of course, a day with Trules. And you were wearing, I think, clothes that were all a different color, and it was perfect.
I like that.
Wait, can I add one more thing to that?
Yeah.
There was a really cool moment where we met the principal, and you had already cultivated such a relationship with this principal, and you were so proud to be a parent at that school. And then the principal gave us a tour to the cafeteria, which doubled as the theater. You could roll away the lunch tables, and there was a stage. And we walked backstage onto this little dingy, dark theater with curtains from the 70s. and you sat in your chair with your legs crossed and your hands on your knees, just looking up where there would be fly space. And I thought, this is a man who is exactly where he's supposed to be. I thought it was so beautiful to see you on the stage of a theater, in a new theater, joining this new community with your new son.
Well, that's touching, and I appreciate that. I'm retiring from USC in a few months, and I have to say, I've been here a long time, and I'm a little tired of teaching the same classes over and over. New students are always great. But now I have this elementary school, and I never was much interested in young kids or the children of my friends. And now I'm going in to read for the kids, and they all love it. They all call me Trules, Trules when I come in, and XL covers his face because he's embarrassed. And then I read them these travel stories.
Oh, wow.
From a bag, a multicolored bag from Laos that I got in the market, and they call it my magic travel bag. And I have like 4 different hats in it, and I let them choose which one I'm going to read for the day. And then I read them travel stories from Borneo, the dragon of Mount Kinabalu. And I get them to act out the parts, and I do all these voices, and it's like fun again. It's not like doing the same old classes at USC. So it's part of my travel adventure now as a parent to sort of share the where I come from and who I am. And it's lovely to do it with these 10-year-old kids.
Yeah. And it seems so connected to your identity as an artist, too. And I hear that, and I'm so moved by that. And I'm sort of jealous of that. I want an opportunity to be an artist for a community like these kids who really need and love and value what you're doing. And I feel like someone who's been out of school 5 years now and is, fighting the fight and trying to be emerging or early career, whatever any of that means. My relationship to being an artist and who I work for and perform for is changing. And I now see that you're describing as an incredibly valuable, necessary audience to be working with. I mean, that sounds very academic of me and very professorial, but I'm just right now in a moment where I'm questioning, the role of actually doing traditional theater for subscribers paying $60 a ticket. How do we use self-expression in the arts and be wacky in a way that is vulnerable and really important?
Yeah, I found myself slightly retreating or sliding away from even doing solo performance pieces or traditional theaters myself. I find, I guess this podcast is a new one-man performance arena. And I've come back to throwing myself into an ensemble theater experience for the first time in 40 years, where I'm taking direction from a former student of mine, and we're devising theater. That means you're making up original work. You're not doing Williams or O'Neill or Mamet or Shepard or whatever, Chekhov, and we're making up work. And that's where I come from. That's what I teach. That's who I am. So I really like that. Let's talk a little bit about your journey of Latino identity, queer identity, if you want, and particularly this part that I like that I read in the intro, which says, in search of his ancestral roots in Mexico. It's like an electronic travel, huh?
So, oh my, where to begin? So my family, I am Mexican and French. My grandfather moved or immigrated to America from Aguascalientes, and I'm second generation, Mexican American. And I always thought I was white. I was never taught Spanish. My parents don't speak Spanish, and I'm fair-skinned. But recently, I've really begin to become interested in my identity as Latino, and specifically my responsibility as a Latino in America, in the arts, and the responsibility I have to advocate for those stories. But anyway, I am interested in connecting to this ancestry that I haven't felt connected to until recently. And I thought, well, I don't know that I have the money or that I can get off work right now to travel to Mexico, to Aguascalientes. So how do I learn about my homeland, the home of my grandfather? So what I thought about doing, and I've started doing this, is I thought, I'm using now the GPS technology of gay sex apps, which, disclaimer, I do not use. I only use for this project. And I am sending basically electronic letters to men in Mexico, young millennial 20-something-year-old men in Aguascalientes specifically. I can target an exact area. And I send them a letter I type up saying everything I've told you, Trules, and I say, I am second generation in search of my ancestry. Will you tell me about my homeland? Will you share with me where my grandfather is from? And there is such an overwhelming excitement from these young men to do that. And it's fascinating to me to use technology to learn about my family's homeland through the lens of these men who have logged on to their apps while lying in bed to have sex. So what do they have to say about growing up Latino in Mexico? And what do they think about America? What do they think about me being second generation America, which is its own sort of test of authenticity?
That's certainly interesting. And since this is an electronic medium and people are listening in their earbuds or headphones, it's certainly an interesting way to consider traveling, right?
Yeah.
To reach out across the oceans with emails and podcasts and letters and technology. I'm part of this organization called Servas, which is a host organization. And a lot of people don't travel. They just are hosts. But they have people from all over the world pass through their homes. And in that way, they get to see the wide planet. And that's how I met Rafi, who I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I was a Servas guest, and I met him in all these different places and have stayed in touch a couple of decades.
Yeah.
So certainly a personal history or family history project is an interesting way to travel.
Another thing that wasn't a project, but that occurred through technology and related to travel was there was a young man who sent me a message through a sex app, and he was from Australia. And he said, "Excuse me, can I ask you something?" And I said, "Sure." "What?" And he says, "I just need to ask, is Donald Trump really getting as much attention as it sounds like he is? Is he really at risk of winning the presidency?" So through this sex app, I was now in the position to speak for the American experience in American politics and answer these questions for a young Australian gay man. And just the sort of intimacy that is offered by electronic technology, whatever, the sort of safe space created in cyberspace is stunning. And I don't travel a lot, but I'm fascinated to hear through your podcast these very vulnerable personal stories about connecting face to face with people. And I'm just curious, not that they're competing, but what is that like compared to the vulnerability via social media and applications on our iPhones? Because I've had some very vulnerable, very personal conversations with people from all over the world who just want to learn about America.
That's all interesting. I don't have the answers, but you also asked me right before the show, what's it like traveling as an American? Of course, I'm not Mr. America or Captain America.
When you come around.
But they do notice how open I am. They think I'm younger than my years. And it's a delicate choice of what to reveal in what country of whether you're American or not. Certainly, I'm not the prototypical McDonald's eating, tour-going American, but in an Arab world, a Muslim world, it's dodgy. I've mentioned before that when I went to East Malaysia, Borneo in 2002, right after 9/11, the screensavers of my colleagues at the university had images of Osama bin Laden. And he was the most popular, most powerful, most admired man in that part of the world. That was shocking to me, even though I thought I was sort of a unpatriotic American. But it took a while to understand where that was coming from. Certainly they had limited media exposure, but he was the only man standing up to the Goliath America and George W. Bush. And what he did with those trade towers gave them some pride. So I had to be quiet and understand. And being an American is less successful in France than it is in Holland, where they like Americans. So you sort of have to know which hat and which mouth to open.
Wow. I remember, not regarding travel, but regarding the French, because I am half French. And I don't know if I was in 8th grade, junior high. After 9/11, there was the move to call French fries freedom fries.
Yeah.
And there was all this like French bashing. Everyone hated the French. And I at the time didn't understand the politics of it, but it made me so sad. You know, here I'm half Mexican and no one likes the Mexicans or not people around me. And I'm French. I thought that was the safe, privileged white half of me. And because of the politics, people hated the French. And I didn't want to reveal that I was. It was very complicated. You know, America's changing relationship to different cultures. But we can't change. I mean, I will always be Mexican and French. So yes. I have nowhere to hide.
Well, I think one of my goals of doing the podcast and being a traveler and is knowing and sharing the belief that we're all connected. We're all human beings. You know, we all want to feel connected to family. We all want security. We want love. We crave for spirituality and transcendence. And somehow that has to supersede all the bigotry and problems that we have in a real world of 2016, 2017 now. Okay, Jonathan, it's time for the Trules Travel Quiz. Where were you born?
San Diego.
Where are you from?
Oh, I would say San Diego, though I'm very interested in this idea of locality, and I am interested in the idea that sometimes people are born into a place that is not actually where they are locals. And I, as farcical as that sounds, I identify as an Angelino.
Where do you call home?
Los Angeles.
There you go. What's your favorite place in the world?
It's got to be my living room in my San Diego home on the sofa with my family.
Nice. Are you a traveler?
I'm not, although I am all over Los Angeles, back and forth.
What's one place that you've always wanted to go where you've never been?
Oh, definitely Mexico. I've been to Tijuana a couple times, but everyone tells me that is not Mexico. That doesn't count. So one day soon, once I learn the language, I'm going.
Great. What's your favorite city?
I am obsessed with LA. I'm convinced it's the greatest city in the world.
So we don't need a why. It's the greatest city in the world.
Greatest city in the world.
What's your favorite park or non-urban place? Why? Why?
I am so at home in urban environments. So my favorite non-urban place, maybe Elysian Park, right here. Very clear. I live in Echo Park, as does Trules, and that park has such history and such international gay history. But that's another podcast.
What's your favorite mode of transportation?
I love driving. I listen to NPR and Buena Vista Social Club, iHeartRadio, and audio plays and audiobooks, and I try and follow all the New York Times best-selling nonfiction books. And I call LA Traffic University, and I make it the most valuable hour or two of my day.
Fantastic. Who do you like to travel with?
My sister. I would go with her anywhere. We've started a tradition of traveling not far, but every other year we spend 4 to 7 days together, and it is some of the most important time to me.
Nice. 2 forks diverged in the road. Which way would you go?
Oh my goodness. I would go towards the fork that allows me to help and advocate for the most people, which to me means emerging, diverse, young, early career artists and just people of color and Latinos all over, regardless of their field.
Very unselfish of you. Here's the last question.
Though it's selfish because it is my community. I am fighting for. I hear myself say these unselfish things, but I recognize I'm not saying, for example, I'm fighting for Asian American playwrights. Perhaps I should be. I am so committed to Latino, Latina, Latinx. That's another conversation. Voices, unselfish, but committed to my ancestry.
Okay, young man. Here's your last question. Where will you go when you die?
I know. I am going to see so much theater when I die. I'm going to go to every theater for free. I don't need my student ID anymore. I'm not excited, but it's going to be game changing. The amount of theater I'll be able to watch and how much I'm going to learn from being able to enter any room I want all over the world.
Portrait of an artist as a young man. Thank you, sir. And with that, I'll wish everyone a post happy 2017, because this will be on the air later. Thank you very much for being the guest on the show, Jonathan Munoz-Proulx. And thank you out there for listening to Behind the Scenes with E-Travels with the E-Trules. Please subscribe on iTunes. Tell all your friends, and let's travel the world together. Original music composed by Amanda Yamate, sound designed by Alicia Bermudez, produced by Harry Duran at Fullcast. Please contact us with your feedback and to schedule an on-air interview. This podcast has been supported with the USC Capstone Grant. Special thanks to Phil Allen and the School of Dramatic Arts for their support.